Good morning. We're going to give everybody just a minute as folks log on, but hang with us. All right, it looks like our participant numbers have stopped climbing, so I think the majority of folks are in the webinar and we're ready to get started. Welcome, my name is Emily Lang. I'm going to be just kind of introducing all of our speakers today. This is the first of 9 webinars for our Florida-friendly landscaping green stormwater infrastructure webinar series. Today we'll be kicking things off with an introduction to GSI through plant selection, types of green infrastructure, and the available resources and funding offered by DEP. Next month, we'll be offering a second webinar on March 16th devoted to funding green stormwater infrastructure. That webinar, we'll hear from a variety of funding programs from the Department of Environmental Protection. To see the full lineup of webinars and to register, please visit floridafriendlylandscaping.com and follow the links to training and FFL webinars. I'll also drop that direct link into our chat box. You'll be able to watch all of the recorded webinars and sign up for the remaining 8 webinars through that link. This webinar is eligible for 1.5 CEU credits for floodplain managers, professional engineers, and landscape architects. If you are interested in any of these CEUs, there will be a chat link that's going to pop up in the chat where you can sign up for the CEUs. I believe they're $10. And there's no test for any except for floodplain managers. You will have a test at the end of the webinar. And Claire Lewis will be your contact if you have any questions or concerns, and you can reach her at clairelewis@ufl.edu. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, please submit them into the chat box. We will have time at the end of the webinar to go through and ask all of our panelists questions. But without further ado, let's get started, and we'll hear from Claire Lewis from the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program first.
Thank you, Emily. I am so happy to be here today. Let me share my screen, get started. And I don't think I have any videos, but I'll pick that anyway. Okay. So I think you all should be good. Once again, my name is Claire Lewis. I'm with the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, and I'm just going to go over a few of the resources that the Florida Friendly Landscaping, or FFL, offers. And I like to start off with, what is Florida Friendly Landscaping? I think there might be some misconceptions out there. But Florida Friendly Landscaping is a science-based approach to maintaining an attractive, diverse, and more sustainable landscape. But the goals and how it relates to green stormwater infrastructure really is to conserve water and protect our water quality. And this program was developed in 1991. We're starting our 30th year anniversary this year. So we're excited about that. But the program was started back in 1991 by the Marine Resource Council. And it really started in just one single community. And it has grown to more than a statewide program. And it's active in 54 counties throughout the state. And the program, the Florida Friendly Landscaping Program, is an umbrella over 3 sub-programs. And these are FFL for homeowners, Florida Friendly Communities, and Green Industries Best Management Practices Program. I work under that middle one, the Florida Friendly Communities. So I work mostly with municipalities, builders, developers, local governments, property managers, things like that. But as you can see here, at Florida Friendly Landscaping, it is in the state statute 373.185. And it's also in the state statutes under the Green Industries Best Management Practices Program. So anybody applying commercial or fertilizer commercially in the state of Florida must go through our GIBMP training before they're eligible to do that. These are the 9 principles of Florida Friendly Landscaping Program. And all the ones that all those programs I just spoke about, that I just mentioned, they teach these same 9 principles just to their different targeted audiences. And really the mission of Florida Friendly is to educate Floridians on environmentally friendly landscaping practices. So we do that by teaching these 9 principles. I won't go into each one individually. I just kind of want you to be familiar with what they are, and you can find more information on our website or any of our other workshops that we give specifically on the 9 principles. Once again, FFL is written into the legislation, both as the program as a whole and specifically as the GIBMP program. These principles have been, found to be compelling enough that they've been written into city, county, and HOA code documents, as well as the state legislation. So that's why we like to bring that up. And as I mentioned at the beginning, Florida Friendly is it's a science-based program, and as such, we're always striving to learn more. I'll go over just a few examples of the research that we have been conducting lately. And the first one that I'm going to talk about is it's comparing what we're calling a Florida Friendly landscape versus a traditional. So you can see the traditional has 75% turf grass. The Florida Friendly has only 25% turf grass and 75% plant bed. And then, the traditional is just the opposite. Traditional has, just a rotor zone to irrigate the whole landscape. And the Florida Friendly landscape, it uses smart irrigation technology, micro irrigation, things like that. But as you can see on this slide, there's a significant savings to Florida Friendly landscaping. They saved up to 84% of the water of a traditional landscape. We also measured the different inputs that go into the landscape, and as well as all the maintenance activities. So you can see by this graph here, the darker one is the traditional landscape, and the lighter one is the Florida Friendly. And you can see that there's about a wash right now in the installation phase, where the labor was the same between the 2 research plots. We do believe that over time, the Florida Friendly labor will go down some as the hand weeding won't be as necessary once the plants are grown to their mature size. And then this is this research was published in this irrigation engineering journal article. So if you want more information, we can give you the link to that. We also looked at Florida Friendly landscaping water savings associated with different activities. So we have a publication on that. And then we developed this chart. And you can see from this document here that by simply reducing irrigation from 3 days a week to 2 days a week, you can expect to save over 10,000 gallons of water per 1,000 square feet a year. Another one to look at is converting spray head nozzles to multi-stream, multi-trajectory nozzles. That's a pretty easy retrofit right here. And that can save over 2,800 gallons of water per 1,000 square feet. So these are just things to kind of we think of this chart as a way to help people decide what types of activities that they're going to take on, what types of things that they're going to change in their landscape. So it can help you make decisions in the landscapes you manage or that you own. And so as a result too, we're calculating the number of people that we interact with across the state. And you can see in 2021, 124,000 residents and landscape professionals were educated through FFL. And this resulted in 359,000 or million gallons of water saved. So those are just some estimates of the impact of Florida Friendly education across the state. This is the last bit of research I'll talk about, but it's landscape preferences. And we asked how much kind of landscape bed did people prefer in their yards? So the first one, is basically really, no plant beds. Second one is 25%, 50, 75, and 100% plant beds. And what the research showed was basically most people, that the highest majority were option 3, and with option 4 being a very close second behind that. So 3 and 4 were by far the most preferred landscapes. Next, I'm going to talk about some of the resources available. And I'll start off with our manuals. The FFL program just has an extensive amount of educational materials available to encourage more sustainable landscaping practices. And the publications on this page are really the foundation of the program. We have the FFL, the Florida Friendly Landscaping Guide to Plant Selection and Landscape Design. This lists plants and their growing requirements, as well as some possible design solutions for common landscape issues. The Florida Yards and Neighborhoods Handbook describes in detail the 9 principles of FFL and how to maintain the landscape for the home audience. And then we have this is a mouthful, we have the Florida Friendly Best Management Practices for the Protection of Water Resources by the Green Industries. And this teaches those 9 principles to the professional landscape community. These publications are free and of charge, and they can be ordered at our website. So I like to show those. I'm still showing these. These are our old manuals, which hopefully you've seen before. This is the new updated version. So keep your eye out for these. These are starting to be distributed to the different extension offices across the state. So just keep your eye out for our updated new publications. Next, I'm going to talk about some online resources that we have available. And I'll just kind of buzz through these. First one that we're really proud to offer is that we have these mobile web applications. We have the FFL Plant Guide, which is very similar to the manual that I just talked about with all the plants and their growing conditions. We have a butterfly garden app that provides butterfly, host, and nectar plants and sample planting designs for small, medium, and large butterfly gardens. We also have a Florida Friendly Fertilizers app for professional maintenance personnel. And this helps kind of keep track of all the various city and county fertilizer restrictions and ordinances that are in place across the state. We have a bee app that's very similar to the butterfly one. And then we have a toxic plant app that includes over 200 plants that can be filtered by whether it's toxic to people, pets, or livestock. It can also be filtered by the symptoms of poisoning, which I think is pretty cool. This is the plant app, the Plant Guide app, and it works just as kind of you would expect it to. You can filter by the type of plant you want, maybe what type of sun you have. Here I have selected partial shade, and whether it's a native or not, it's going to filter for your zip code that you're in. So that's kind of how this app works. Then you'll get the list of plants that meet those criteria that you selected. And then you'll get detailed information on each one of those plants. So it's a great app. It works really well. We're happy to offer that for free. We, as you know, you're attending one of our webinars. We do offer 2 monthly webinar series right now for professionals. So we have the traditional one that we've been offering for the last few years. Our next one for that will be on March 14th, and it's bringing in the butterflies. And it's with Dr. Jarrett Daniels, who's really fantastic. He's over there at the Natural History Museum. And then our next Green Stormwater Infrastructure webinar series that we will offer is March 16th, and that'll be funding. So these are great. They're all recorded. They're on our website. If you miss one, you can come back and catch up on them. Where the webinars are, live, we also offer these continuing education and online modules that you can take anytime that you want. They're self-paced and you can take them, on your own time. They do offer CEUs for landscape architects, community association managers, FNGLA, FDEX, LAIF, and Florida Water Star. And then to support landscape professionals, we started this Hire Florida Friendly campaign. And really the goal of this is to encourage people to hire trained landscape professionals. These include people from FNGLA, ISA, certified arborists, and other licensed individuals. So that's how we're hoping to support landscape professionals. We have a list of recommended certificates and certifications and licenses. We also have a checklist for homeowners who are looking to hire a landscape professional. And next, I'm going to talk about some different certification programs that we offer with FFL. And first one I usually mention is FFL landscape recognitions. These are not certifications; these are recognitions, and we offer that for home, for commercial, new construction, and we are offering a neighborhood recognition, and that will be available later this year. The Green Industries Best Management Practices, which I've mentioned several times now. This is really our signature program at Florida Friendly. This is an educational program for people working in lawn care and landscape maintenance. As I mentioned before, in order to apply commercial fertilizer in the state of Florida, you must go through this training. So it is written into our state statutes. We also have created Florida Friendly Landscaping Certified Professional. This is a voluntary designation for individuals who have completed the required training in FFL principles, and they're familiar with the latest UF-IFAS recommendations. This program was initially intended for code enforcement agents to help them identify what is and isn't Florida friendly when they're out in the field. However, we've also seen interest from landscape architects and designers, as well as green industry professionals. And this is a way to promote their educational training and marketability. And by becoming FFLCP, you'll get a competitive advantage in the marketplace. You'll be listed on our website, and you'll also be able to use this logo that we've created for certified professionals. It's a hybrid model. You take 6 online courses, then you attend a field module and you take a test and sign the code of ethics. And that's a process for becoming a Florida Friendly Landscaping Certified Professional. Next, I'm going to talk about the Florida Friendly Ponds program. This is new. We'll be launching it this year. And we've just seen a need. We have, we get a lot of questions about stormwater ponds and how to maintain them and things like that. There are over 70,000 stormwater ponds in Florida today, and we're growing every day, right? This is also a stormwater pond is the body of water that most Floridians interact with on a day-to-day basis. So they're most familiar with these stormwater ponds, and they may have been sold their house as waterfront because it's on a stormwater pond. But, there's a lot of misconceptions about, what a stormwater pond should look like and how to manage it. So this program really is to try to, let people know the functionality of a stormwater pond and the best management practices for that. It is also a hybrid curriculum where there are 7 weeks of online courses and then a field day module to obtain this certificate. So we're excited about that program. It's got a lot of great researchers and faculty members and people involved in this. So it has just a lot of really great information. Next, I'm going to talk about the Green Stormwater Infrastructure Maintenance Certification. So this is a new program. We launched it last year. We saw a need for this as many cities and counties are installing large green stormwater infrastructure projects. And, we want to make sure that these systems continue to function as they were intended and that they also continue to look good. So this is a way of really, making sure that people know what to expect out of their green stormwater infrastructure. And we see this certification as valuable for the landscape maintenance personnel, as well as, governmental staff to, when they're speccing this and when they're doing the funding for managing it and things like that. It's a hybrid training as well. There'll be online modules and a field module day with an applied learning. Also involved in this program is we have a maintenance manual that goes along with it. It goes through the different GSI systems and has some great graphics, as you'll see. There's also checklists for each type of GSI system. So there'll be a checklist and different examples of things to look for. These are the different types of GSI that are in there: bioretention, cistern, green roof, permeable pavement, swales. So those are the different types of GSI that are covered in this manual. There's also a plant selection guide that goes along with the Green Stormwater Infrastructure. And on the plant selection guide, it'll say the type of GSI that the plant can work in. It'll also give things like the plant spacing, which I think is really important for this type of project. And it'll also include some maintenance, tips and things to keep in mind when you're speccing that plant. And then lastly, what I just want to bring to everybody's attention is that we do offer an awards program. It'll be next year that we start this awards program. Again, we have it every 2 years. And we have an award for municipal landscapes, as well as green stormwater infrastructure. So keep that in mind as you're working on your stormwater infrastructure projects. We'd love to highlight those and really, encourage people to implement more green stormwater infrastructure. And with that, I am going to stop sharing and turn my slides over, turn the screen over.
All right. Oh.
Thank you, Claire. Up next, we have our dynamic duo. We have Dr. Eben Bean and Jessica Brusso, who are going to tell us all about green stormwater infrastructure and kind of an introduction and setting us up for success.
Thanks a lot, Emily. You guys can hear me okay? It looks like. Okay. Yeah, so want to start out just kind of with the reason and the rationale behind stormwater management, sort of why we have ended up where we're at with sort of range of stormwater management across different landscapes, and why there's a need to transition to kind of more of a modern approach to stormwater management. When we think about sort of the landscape transition, every piece of property starts out, or piece of land starts out as sort of a native or an undeveloped landscape. And the characteristics of that landscape dictate basically what happens to all of the rainfall that falls on that site. And so, for example, in this natural ground cover that doesn't have any impervious area, no concrete, no roofs, no asphalt, just kind of hypothetically, just kind of for an example here, we might have, for example, 50% of that rainfall infiltrates into the ground, with maybe 40% either being captured by the trees and then evaporated, or maybe we have shallow infiltration, but the roots of the trees take it up and it goes back into the atmosphere. And maybe there's only 10% of the total rainfall that actually runs off of this site. As we start to change and increase the amount of imperviousness, we're changing sort of how that landscape functions. And we are shifting sort of what the end result or what the fate of that rainfall really is. So in this case, as we're starting to, maybe we've got some pretty large lots here, just small increase in imperviousness. We've come down a little bit on our infiltration to about 42% here. We've bumped up our runoff to 20%, and our evapotranspiration has come down a little bit. As we transition into more of a suburban or sort of your typical residential development area, we might have around 30 to 50% imperviousness. And now we've kind of decreased our infiltration further. Our runoff has increased more, and our evapotranspiration continues to dwindle down. As we get into more of an extreme situation where we have nearly 100% imperviousness in downtown, sort of very high intensity urban areas, we see sort of the full spectrum of sort of the endpoint that we can make the shift to with our water balance. At this point, our runoff has increased to 55%. Our infiltration is down to 15%. Not a whole lot of open areas for that water to infiltrate into. And now our evapotranspiration is now down to about 30%. And if we look at sort of the runoff, you may only think of that 10 to 55%. That's only a 45% increase. Well, it's actually, from the watershed and the environment perspective, it's a increase of 4.5 times over what the initial runoff response was over the long term. So it's quite a drastic change. And the ways that we have gone about addressing stormwater have evolved over the past 100 100 years or so, okay, with a lot of more advancements coming in the last 30 to 50 years. So we think about sort of our typical approach to urban drainage. It's been pretty straightforward to try and get that water off-site as quickly as possible. We've gotten pretty efficient with it. You see scuppers on the left, or water that goes into a storm drain, that goes into a stormwater pipe, and then typically into the nearest waterway. And this was the way that we managed our stormwater pretty ubiquitously up until probably the 1970s and 80s, and maybe even some into the 90s, but it definitely started to transition at that point. But this is, sort of a simplistic or minimalistic approach to stormwater management. And this has had quite a few impacts on the environment. The runoff that's coming off of our urban landscapes also carries with it quite a bit of a variety of pollutants. And depending on the landscape or the source area that we're carrying stormwater from, those pollutants can be quite different. So, for example, roadways that have a lot of traffic, a lot of breakdown of brakes and other metals that come from traffic on the roadways, polyaromatic hydrocarbons. There's just atmospheric deposition of leaves and other organic debris, sediments, the breakdown of pavements, and that gets washed off as well. If we're not as careful with the application of our fertilizers, nitrogen and phosphorus can be sources from our landscapes. And then, I have a dog at home. This is not him. My dog is nowhere near as cute as this. But those pets are basically walking, barking point sources for nutrients and bacteria. The point being, there's a variety of pollutants that come from that urbanized area that we've transformed from the natural landscape. And sending that water off-site can have some pretty drastic impacts. We see that, for example, we can have an excess of flow going through stream channels and cause erosion, like we have in the bottom left corner, where channels can basically blow out, and we have a lot of instability on the banks. If all that water is going off-site, that may be fine and good for you, but if you're the one who's receiving all that water, then you're probably going to get flooded. And so that's not a great situation for a lot of our residents. In extreme cases where we have nutrients or toxins going into waterways, we can have fish kills, as you see in the upper left-hand corner, or pretty widespread algal blooms that we could see in the lower right corner. And this is a photo from St. John's River from years back, where they had a massive algal bloom occurring. So when we think about urbanization, one of the things that we've historically seen is that, for the most part, our impaired water bodies follow the trend of urbanization. The map on the lower right shows a projection or an existing development extent for Central Florida, the red areas being the urban areas, greens being ag and conservation. And the map on the left is the watersheds around the state that currently do not meet their water quality standards. They're impaired for one pollutant or another. And hopefully you can see that there is some correlation between where there's imperviousness and where these watersheds are impaired. Now, just to be clear, stormwater runoff is not the only source of impairment in our water bodies. You see, there's definitely some places in the southeast part of this figure that are not urbanized that still have impaired water bodies. Some of the other sources can be ag and wastewater systems that can contribute pollutants to those water bodies. But stormwater is a significant one on its own. The way that we've been addressing or basically managing stormwater is essentially creating sort of this stormwater legacy. It's pretty difficult to go back and change or retrofit what our stormwater designs and configurations are. So it's something that we should start to think about more. Currently, our traditional approach is we still kind of have this approach of trying to get water off site as quickly as possible. And right now, it's water getting off of the rooftops into the driveway, into the gutter or the street, into a storm drain, and then into a stormwater pond. As Claire mentioned, there's about 70,000 of these. Actually, probably more, since that data may be a little bit dated. But essentially, stormwater ponds were initially meant to address two things: flood control, and flow rates. And later on, we started to apply some credit to those with the water quality treatment. The issue that we run into is that stormwater ponds are great for capturing the large storm events that occur and slowly releasing that, mitigating the flooding that could occur downstream, reducing the flow rate of water leaving an urbanized area. But we're seeing that they aren't necessarily meeting the anticipated, the expected performance of water quality and protecting our water quality areas. This is a little bit of a technical slide, but I'll kind of hopefully walk you through it really quickly. Ponds essentially, the fundamental assumption to how ponds would perform was that we assumed that our nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, the removal rate in stormwater ponds was similar to that of sediments. You think about sediments, you got a fast moving water that comes in, it's carrying some sediments, it slows down, those sediments drop out. And ponds remove about, we've seen in studies, about 80% of the sediments that come into them. Pretty good. And phosphorus, a lot of times is closely associated with sediments. And so when you drop out the sediments, you can pretty much get pretty close to that with phosphorus. But nitrogen is a little bit of a different story. Nitrogen in Florida particularly, only about half of nitrogen is associated with particulates. The other half is essentially nitrate and ammonia and organics that are dissolved, and they stay in the water column and they don't settle out. And so our stormwater ponds, they never reach this sort of assumed treatment level of 80%. We typically get about 40%, 50% removal on the best of in the best of conditions there. And this kind of goes back to what our approach to stormwater management was. In the design of stormwater ponds, these are typically designed for a 25, 50, 100-year storm events. You may have hear about these when we have these large storm events, particularly hurricanes come through. And this is some data from Bradenton in Florida, and this looks at basically each of the different lines here is a return period. Okay, so the yellow line here is your 25-year return period. The 50 is the orange. The red is the 100-year return period. And I've got it marked here for the 24-hour duration, which is similar to what the Bradenton area received for Hurricane Ian. And if you look at this, you can tell that our rain events for the 25 to 100-year event in that area for the 24-hour duration is somewhere between 8 and 12 inches. That's a lot of rainfall. That's a lot of water to go over an entire area and then have to manage that. But when we take a step back and we look at what the total distribution, the occurrence of all the storms that occur, not just the maximum ones, the ones that are basically occurring way up here is what we were just looking at. When we look at all of these storm events that are happening, the daily afternoon storm that comes through, those really aren't that large. We're looking at, some of these storm events, in this case, 80% of rainfall events are less than an inch. That's not a whole lot of rainfall, particularly if we're able to, if not all that area is imperviousness. If we go up a little bit more, 90% is less than an inch and a half. And these are the storms that regularly contribute nutrients to our stormwater ponds and offsites, that this is sort of what we need to be managing. And so integrating this amount of storage into the landscape and into our urban areas is a little bit different approach than our stormwater pond management. And these storms are much lower or much smaller than the large stormwater ponds that are designed for 8 to 12 inches. And you can see 8 to 12 inches isn't even on this graph. Okay. So I want to introduce to you sort of a couple of definitions here: low impact development and green stormwater infrastructure. And if you're familiar with these terms, you may have heard them used interchangeably. And for a long time, I used them interchangeably. They kind of meant very similar things. But after working in this topic for several years, most of my career, I've come to realize that there's an important distinction. And I'm going to talk first about the low impact development side of things, and then Jessica's going to talk more about the green stormwater infrastructure. But I wanted to kind of define these in this way to help you understand that they actually occur at very different points in the design or development process. So low impact development is a site planning and design strategy, right? And the intent here is to basically maintain the pre-development hydrologic regime. We want to basically avoid and minimize the amount of runoff that's being increased from a site that's going to be developed, okay? So once we have minimized and avoided as much runoff production as possible, then we can look at how can we integrate green stormwater infrastructure into the landscape or into the developed area to now manage and mitigate that stormwater that could not be avoided or mitigate or minimized. Okay, so these together are going to be referred to as LID and GSI. To give you sort of some examples of what this looks like, in the upper left-hand corner is what we typically see with a lot of land development. We tend to try to fit the project or actually fit the site to our project. We clear cut the site, we master grade it, we move soil all over the site so that we can maximize what we can get out of that site. And then at the end, we try to come back in and put in stormwater management. Instead, in the lower corner, lower left-hand corner, we can see where we've identified some valuable resources, some natural areas that don't need to be cleared and actually could provide some of our stormwater storage for those flooding events. And you can see sort of just a comparison on the right between what a conventional design might look like and what an LID design might look like. And I want to point out that same number of lots on this site. They're a little bit smaller on the LID side, but you have more communal open space in this development. There's a little bit less imperviousness because the road links are less. And there's more vegetation that's been preserved and more storage for retention. Another example here was a site that was actually built that I got this from a colleague. And essentially they were able to save money with an LID design. If you look at these two approaches, the conventional on the left and the one on the LID on the right, one of the big changes is that you see that there's no stormwater pond on the right. Well, how do they do that? Well, the pavement that they used here, the conventional pavement on the left was replaced by porous pavement. And while porous pavement is more expensive, they were able to save money by reducing the amount of land acquisition, grading, and stormwater pipes that were going to have to go into the site to make up for the impervious pavement on the left. So by utilizing and integrating stormwater management, green stormwater infrastructure into the site design, they were able to offset the increased cost of the porous pavement and reduce the footprint of the site. I want to talk about disconnected imperviousness. This is a really important strategy particularly for small storm events. We think about the connectivity where you have rain that falls on the rooftop and then maybe goes down through a downspout onto the driveway, into the road, into a stormwater inlet, and then into the stormwater pond. There's never an opportunity for that water to infiltrate or make its way into the ground where it did before that area was developed. So providing these breaks in the connected imperviousness gives an opportunity, particularly for these small storm events, to capture that amount of water and allow that to infiltrate. And it increases the amount of storage and capacity of the landscape before stormwater actually leaves the site. We can see this done in a couple of different ways: the roadways and the swales that are adjacent to the roadway, or curb cuts where water can kind of run down the curb and then discharge into grassed areas or landscaped areas, just utilizing those areas more effectively. Traffic islands and medians are another great option for how to integrate these types of practices into the landscape. These are oftentimes sort of dead zones where there's not a lot of utility to those islands, but turning them from basically, areas that produce runoff into areas that reduce runoff or receive it is a really effective strategy, particularly for these small, regularly occurring storm events, to shave off sort of that stormwater runoff that's coming off the site. And not every setting is going to have or utilize the same types of structures or stormwater infrastructure. the way that we transition from natural areas to our urban areas, different urban areas, is going to make sense for different types of practices in different settings. You know, in the higher land use, the more urban core areas, it's going to make a lot more sense to use practices that maybe are a little bit more expensive, but we are able to reduce the amount of total area that we have to utilize for our stormwater management. Okay, whereas at our less dense or our lower cost land areas, we might use sort of more lower cost practices that are more distributed and maybe take up more land because it's a more cost effective in that way. So to kind of give a little bit more specifics on these types of practices and the options that can be integrated, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Jessica Brusso, to take over this and tell you more about green stormwater infrastructure.
Thanks, Evan. Let me get my PowerPoint up here for you guys. All right, excellent. So as Evan said, my name is Jessica Brusso. I am the Urban Green Infrastructure BMP Specialist with Ferguson Waterworks. I'm going to go through some of the whys. We're going to do green stormwater infrastructure, and we want to, and Evan already dove into that. And then I'm going to give you a brief overview of some of the different types of green stormwater infrastructure that you can see. And these are things that we're going to go over more in a lot more detail in future webinars. So as far as gray infrastructure, we all know this, right? We want to get water as quickly as possible into catch basins through a series of culverts or ditches and into an area that's a receiving water body. This might be a detention pond. This might just be a canal or a river or the ocean. And of course, with this increased impervious that we've been seeing, you know, it's just carrying all the pollutants and everything else with it as it goes. Green infrastructure, on the other hand, as we've been discussing, it's going to more closely mimic nature. So we want to decrease that impervious area and increase the infiltration, and really just try to get the water, instead of into a catch basin as quickly as possible, we want to get that into the ground as quickly as possible. So why do we want to use GSI practices? The answer might be different whether you are a municipality or a homeowner or a developer. But essentially, we want to mitigate that flash flooding. We want to catch that first flush of water, like Evan was talking about, that first 1.5 inches of water. Help to recharge our aquifers and combat sea level rise, combat saltwater intrusion or sinkholes. We want to add tax revenue because, as we know, greenifying does actually increase that tax revenue. Property values go up, the nicer something is, and the nicer it looks in the area. It can also increase the lot yield, as Evan was saying, for developers, which then increases that project revenue as well as the return on investment. Again, for municipalities, we can gain BMAP credits, credits towards RAPs, or your NPDES MS4 permits by implementing these, reducing the nutrients, collecting the data on sediment and other things that you get as well. Our other kind of, I would call these soft outcomes, except they're really not because they are quantifiable. So our other green stormwater outcomes, nutrient reduction, again, increased resiliency, reduced heat island effect, particularly for those really urbanized environments, a community amenity, and also community engagement, as you can use these for nonprofits or volunteers to come and actually assist in the community in taking care of some of these assets, as well as ecosystem services. And again, as we know, more people, more runoff, right? So we have a lot of times pipes that are in the ground for stormwater from 30 years ago, 50 years ago, whatever it may be. And 30 or 50 years ago, we had a certain number of people. But as you all know, we have about 1,000 people moving to Florida every single day. However, we still have the same pipes in the ground in a lot of the cases and a lot more people. So that return on investment is, or I'm sorry, not the return on investment, but the LOS is decreasing because we're not really changing anything. We're doing the same thing over and over again. And in fact, adding more pollutants to the water bodies, as we all know, and really just decreasing everything. So if we take a look at some common GSI practices, you can see the list here. We're going to, like I said, go through these again in future webinars. but I want to take you over to Cocoa Beach, where I am from. There's an amazing project that was done called the Minutemen Streetscape and Stormwater LID project. If you guys have ever been over to Cocoa Beach, this is kind of the main drag there. There's a restaurant Coconuts on the beach at the very end, which is quite popular. So if you've been there, you might have been to that restaurant. So in this 5-block area, what's really great about this is that they put in rain gardens all throughout. Now, these aren't every single rain garden. There are about 27 rain gardens in this 5-block space. There are also permeable parking spaces throughout. So anywhere there's on-street parking in this area, they are permeable pavers. There are tree box filters throughout. And there are also 3 blocks of underground storage where you have enough room for infiltration underneath. So we have 3 blocks of those. And why I bring this up is because it was this very concentrated effort in this 5-block span to implement all of these different practices. And what it resulted in was a 98.5% hydraulic efficiency. So that means 98.5% of the water that fell in comparison to before is now not reaching the outfalls. It is not going to the Banana River Lagoon. And therefore, it's decreasing not only the amount of water, but also the amount of sediment and pollutants that are reaching the water body. So what are some common challenges to green stormwater infrastructure? We know, especially in urban areas, that we have very tight spaces to work around. So we have to take that into account. But there are a lot of different ways that you can actually make use of these tight spaces. We have to work around existing infrastructure. You guys, if you have ever been in the fields, may be familiar with something like this, where people go into construction and open up the ground to put something new in, a new asset, and see something that was not on the as-built from 30 years ago. Pretty common practice that happens. So how can we actually work around these things? We want to make sure that we engage with our local businesses and communities and residents to make sure they understand why these different features are going in and what function they have. Now, construction, no matter what, it always affects local businesses. But I think when we're trying to do something that's perceived as new, it's even more important to get that buy-in with our community members. We also have this need for function, but also feature aesthetics. And green stormwater infrastructure can combine these two things. So we can get this nice function where you have under the ground detention or infiltration, right? Underground storage of water. But above ground, we can have these very nice Florida-friendly landscaping, Florida natives as well, and just really bring those two things together. And I also want to stress the importance of lessons learned. So as with anything, we want to know when things are going in the ground, what's working, what's not working, because it's important to share those with each other and understand this didn't work in this area. Why didn't it work in that area? Let's not try it here. Let's try something different, or let's modify this. So it's very important to make sure we have that open dialogue between all the stakeholders. Let's go over some common green infrastructure misconceptions. The first, you probably all heard, it's too expensive to build, okay? And sometimes, as Evan mentioned, when you're working in these tight urban spaces, it might be more expensive. But we have to think about, okay, what's the difference? Let's just compare these pavers, right? Is there that much of a cost difference between the pavers that are traditional, that don't allow for any infiltration, that are on the left-hand side, versus an open joint paver system that allows for infiltration of stormwater, reduces flooding, etc. on the right-hand side? Are they too expensive to maintain? Again, I would argue, is there a difference between this landscaped island on the left-hand side that is not receiving stormwater versus the one on the right-hand side, which is receiving stormwater? And Evan mentioned it in his talk as well, making use of these little areas, even if they're in parking lots. And instead of mounding something up, we're going to depress it. We're going to collect stormwater. We have this aesthetic feature that's also functional. And there's really no difference in the landscaping cost. And too expensive to repair. A lot of green stormwater infrastructure, again, we can make use of these tight spaces, these right-of-way areas to collect water, rather than opening up the entire road and putting in a larger pipe, right? We can make use of other spaces and infiltrate rather than tearing up the road to do that. So, you have other costs there, like the cost of shutting down the roads and the headache of all that, not to mention the cost of the MOT. So again, it's just a comparison. And really, we have to also look at those benefits of infiltrating that water, reducing the flooding, and also reducing the load of pollutants to our receiving water bodies, which we all know has a great cost to us. So let's look at some different green stormwater solutions. We're going to look at some vegetative solutions, pervious surfaces, filters, as well as underground infiltration. It's important to note that even when we're talking about green infrastructure, it's not always green. It's not always with plants. We want it to be with plants, but we have to kind of mix the two things together. But starting with our green, we can look at tree boxes and suspended surface systems. This is typical, right? People plant trees in urban areas and they stick a root ball in and they fill the hole with soil. There is hardly anywhere for those roots to go, right? We want to stop doing this. We want to give trees space to grow, okay? So tree boxes and suspended surface systems are really modules that are constructed. They're placed within urban walkways or parking areas that really give trees the space to grow, and also a little extra space for stormwater collection as well. And this space is going to be underneath the walkways, underneath the driving surfaces, right? But we have room, as you can see in that bottom left picture, we now have room for roots to grow instead of upheaval of pavement and pavers and whatever else is on the surface, because they're searching for water and they're searching for oxygen. They can also, again, putting stormwater into these systems help reduces the nutrients. We create that urban canopy to reduce that heat island effect. So our typical practices we'd see here would be different forms of tree boxes and suspended pavement systems. Bioretention and rain gardens are also very popular. Depressed areas with plants that collect stormwater. These can be used by homeowners. These can be used in right-of-ways. They can be used as larger areas as well. Essentially, we want to collect stormwater volume. We want to infiltrate, reduce nutrients, but we also, again, add that aesthetic feature here. Okay, so common practices we're going to see are bioretention areas, modular gardens that can collect roof runoff, etc., and also rain gardens. You can see some different examples here. They often will infiltrate, and sometimes you will have an overflow as well for excess water. Now, bioswales are a little different. They look very similar. They're also going to be depressed areas that collect stormwater and create that flow. So this time we want to create a flow path for that water. So most of the time our bioswales are going to be have an under drain as well. But essentially for that stormwater collection as well as the conveyance of stormwater. So that's really the important differentiation between a bioretention and a bioswale, right? We have that conveyance. You're probably going to have in the profile a perforated pipe that is then going to also collect the excess water and move that to another location. So our practices, when we look at these, they could simply be grassed. However, being vegetated gives you more of that nutrient reducing capacity. And you see on the lower right-hand side, they can also be modular. Pervious surfaces are surfaces for parking, roadways, sidewalks that allows the water to infiltrate into the ground below. Again, remember, our GSI practices have to do with getting the water to infiltrate as close to where it falls as possible rather than running off into different areas. So we want to promote infiltration while at the same time stabilizing these walking and driving surfaces. So we've seen different types of porous concrete and asphalt, pervious pavers, open joint pavers, concrete grid pavers that can either be filled with grass or with stone, and the same for the plastic reinforcement grid that you can see in the bottom left-hand corner. So we do a lot of things that try to draw attention to our storm drains, right? We have different programs all throughout municipalities in Florida. We have adopt-a-drain programs. We have different art forms. We have different, other decals and everything. And of course, those of you who with managing MPDS permits understand the importance of those, and that is one of those requirements. But a lot of times we still end with a lot of other stuff in our storm drains. So sometimes you hear the stories about puppies and kittens and ducklings and different things like that. And interesting things like bald eagles, or of course, all over Florida, we hear the stories about alligators being in storm drains. But our primary source that we're looking for to protect from getting into our stormwater systems are sediments and gross pollutants like trash and leaves. So let's look at some what we can call green stormwater infrastructure accessories, right? So we talked about our main BMPs for GSI, right? But now let's look at some other things that can go with this. So pre-treatment is going to be extremely important. We want to keep out as much as possible from our stormwater systems, whether it's a traditional stormwater system or whether it is a green stormwater infrastructure asset. This can be either centralized, as in a large baffle box at the end of the line, or decentralized and using each individual catch basin and protecting that. So we want to protect that green stormwater infrastructure and really centralize the maintenance. It's going to be very important because if you can centralize maintenance, right, you have this area, you can clean it out. It's much easier to do than if the trash goes into whatever feature you're talking about, whether it's the bioretention or the swale, etc. So different practices you can see here involve screens, filters as well that can be input into catch basins, catch basin inserts that are screens as well, nutrient separating baffle boxes. And you can also in the middle lower picture see a pre-treatment device that is used to catch debris and sediment before going into a bioretention or rain garden. Underground storage. So essentially creating the space underground, right? Getting the stormwater underground to infiltrate. So this is especially important in our urban areas where there is not enough room for a pond or a swale or a bioretention rain garden, etc. So essentially we want to get the water out, get it underneath and get it to infiltrate or possibly detain. If we can't infiltrate, we can detain and at least manage that peak flow. So different practices you'll see here, exfiltration chambers, perforated pipes. We have modular storage as well as underground vaults. BAM. BAM is very popular for a good reason because it helps to reduce nutrients, especially like nitrogen, phosphorus, and bacteria. It's a media mixed especially for nutrient reduction and can be used in conjunction with other GSI BMPs like our swales, our bioretentions, our other types of nutrient separating baffle boxes, upflow filters, etc. We can even use these on ponds as well as side bank filters. So as you can see, again, nitrogen, phosphorus reduction, bacteria, and TSS. Commonly, we hear a lot about bold and gold here in Florida. There's also wood pulp BAM, as well as biochar. And I just want to give you guys a few examples of treatment trains, right? Using multiple green stormwater infrastructure BMPs together in one area to maximize infiltration as well as maximizing nutrient reduction. I'll take you over to one project in Cocoa Beach called Conveyor Cove. There are open joint pavers as well as a BAM wall for the water to travel through underneath. It was submerged. I'll show you the detail in a second, as well as a vegetated detention area. And if you guys can see in this, essentially underneath the pervious pavers, the water flows through a BAM wall that's submerged under the ground and then into a bioretention area. There is, of course, overflow for water that is on the surface to flow into the bioretention that way as well. And you can see the before picture as well as a picture after construction. Again, remember we talked about one of those really important green stormwater infrastructure benefits is going to be this kind of greenifying and adding tax revenue. This certainly adds tax revenue. And finally, taking you back again to Minuteman Causeway, just to show you that before and after. Here's before, this is from 2011. And after the project, this is more recent in 2022. So you can see the stark difference here in the landscape. It's much more inviting, much more people friendly to have people sit there and enjoy that downtown area. So thank you guys so much for listening. I'm going to turn this over to Nathan now.
Thanks, Jessica. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen now. Okay, just want to make sure everyone can see my screen now. Looks good. Okay. Hey everyone, so my name is Nathan Jagoda. I work in the non-point source management program at the Department of Environmental Protection. We have several GSI resources that I'm going to cover in my presentation today. And then we also offer two two grant funding sources that I'll explain and kind of talk about what goes into a proposal for those. Alrighty. So the first resource that I'm going to cover today is our newly launched Green Stormwater Infrastructure website. So Claire, Evan, and Jessica all gave a pretty good overview of what Green Stormwater Infrastructure is. So I'm going to mainly just cover the components of our website and other resources. So our website contains several sections, including a GSI Basics section, a GSI Resources section, a Community Engagement section, a Success Stories section, a Funding section, and then a Contact section. So this website is really our attempt in the non-point source program to consolidate Florida-focused GSI resources in one spot. So folks can come here kind of as a one-stop shop to be able to view a variety of green stormwater infrastructure resources. So the link is here on this slide. You can see at the top under where it says GSI website. It's gsi.floridadep.gov. And I'll also display this link on a slide towards the end of the presentation. So if you don't get a chance to write it down here, you'll be able to in a future slide. So I'm going to go through a few of the key sections of the website. I won't go through the entire thing during this presentation, but I will cover a few of the different sections that we want to highlight. So the first section I'll cover is our resources section. So the resources section contains a few different subsections: a technical resources section, an EPA resources section, a GSI/LID manual section, as well as a community engagement resource section. So I'll kind of explain what can be found within each of those subsections. And some of it you've actually already heard from our other presenters today. So our technical resource section includes a lot of good stuff. We have it broken down into some subsections again, so it kind of everything's organized really well so you can find exactly what you're looking for. So we have a general section. In that general section, you can find stuff such as Green Stormwater Infrastructure info manuals. We have several from the University of Florida, as well as our publication tool that we have created here at the Non-Point Source Management Program at DEP. And I'll actually be going over that in depth in a slide, couple slides down the road. We also have a design subsection. In that design subsection, you can find things such as LID Planning and Design Manual, GSI Plant Guide, which was mentioned earlier, as well as a GSI modeling tool that isn't quite available yet. It's being developed now, but will be forthcoming in the future. We also have a maintenance subsection. So in that maintenance subsection, you can find, again, some things that Claire mentioned earlier, a link to the GI-BMP certification through Florida Friendly Landscaping, a link to the GSI maintenance training, which isn't active yet, but will be soon. A link to the Healthy Pond certification through UF, as well as GSI maintenance manual from UF. And then the last subsection there, I'm sorry, that is our last subsection of the technical resources section. And then we also have an EPA resources section under the technical resources. So that's kind of broken down into two sections: GSI and LID. So here you'll find basically a collection of documents that have been released by the Environmental Protection Agency. So here you can find things such as a link to the EPA's GSI website. They have a great permitting and enforcement series. They have a link to a presentation on doing these types of projects using their 319 funding source, which is a funding source that we offer through the Non-Point Source Management program. So I'll go over that a little bit towards the end of my presentation today. And then on the LID side of things, they have just various informational documents, such as a breaking barriers document, a document on aesthetics, a document on the encouraging benefits of LID, maintenance, terminology, etc. So that pretty much covers it for a technical resource section of the website. I'm sorry, the EPA resources section of the website. And from here, I'm going to jump into our regional GSI and LID manual section. So here is a list of region-specific manuals for GSI and LID. Currently, we have around 8 manuals up, but this is an evolving list. So we're always eager to learn of new manuals and get them up on the website so that people can use them. So if anyone does have manuals that you find are not already listed on our website, please feel free to send them over. I'll provide an email at the end of the presentation, and we'd be happy to take a look at them, and if they fit, get them up on the website. So now I'm going to cover the last subsection, which is our community engagement resources section. And this contains 3 resources here. So we have our GSI PowerPoint, which was developed by us at the Nonpoint Management Program. So this is a presentation intended to be used by local government staff and educators to provide an overview of GSI in the state. And similarly, we have a GSI brochure, which is pretty much the same thing in a brochure format. So this is a brochure that's intended to be distributed to the general public by, again, educators, government staff, to provide an overview of GSI in the state. So kind of taking that presentation and putting it into a brochure that can be distributed a little bit easier. So from here, I'm going to go into our community engagement section of the website. So the community engagement section of our website contains methods to gain support of folks like municipal staff, elected officials, developers, business community, pretty much all the key stakeholders that you may engage with when it comes to the implementation of green stormwater infrastructure. So here you can find basically tips that you can keep in mind when having these discussions with various stakeholders to make sure you consider their priorities and can pitch your projects with those thoughts in mind. So each section will go into the key interests that these various stakeholders might have in relation to GSI. So some examples of topics that you can find are why GSI would matter to them, how can it help an elected official's city, economy, neighborhoods, and then there's also some information on cost and performance of various systems. And then, so this section is really just a great place to find tips for engaging different stakeholders. And then moving on to the next section of our website that I'm going to cover today is our Success Stories website. So our Success Stories website contains examples of successful GSI projects throughout the state. And here is really an attempt to highlight prime examples of GSI in the state. This is an ongoing page, so this is still under development. We definitely understand that we don't have a all-encompassing collection of GSI projects here, and again, this will just be kind of those star projects, but for now we're actually working on growing our collection and updating this map. So this will likely look very different in the near future. We have some projects that we're getting ready to load in, so we will be making some changes on this page in the near future, but this will be a great place that you can come to find just really those prime examples of green stormwater infrastructure projects that have been implemented throughout Florida. And it's a live map, so you can go in and click these points, and then it'll bring you to a report on each project. So here you can find information for each project, such as location, GSI type, project summaries, photo, costs and funding. You can find some maintenance information, results, project contacts, so you could follow up with the folks who were responsible for implementing these projects if you have questions or want to talk shop with them about what went into the implementation, and some more topics depending on the project and what we were able to collect. So as I mentioned, we're really eager to add projects to this map. So if you have any successful GSI projects that you'd like to submit, please email me. I'll provide my email at the end of the presentation, and I'll send you an application to be included. So I'll provide that email towards the end. You can send that over then. Next section I'm going to cover is our publication tool. And the publication tool is another resource that we've developed here in the non-point source management section. So this is a free tool that municipalities can use to create various types of messaging related to non-point source pollution. The tool provides easy to edit templates that can contain preloaded DEP approved messaging that can be customized to represent municipality needs. So a really good thing about this tool is all the language that you'll find in here has gone through the DEP comms department. It's vetted and approved by the department. So this is really the way that we would like to see these different topics explained in educational resources. And it's a free resource, which we're really proud of, which makes it a great option for smaller municipalities who may not have their own marketing team in-house. And that's to say, not just municipalities. This is a tool that various different stakeholder groups can use to create educational resources at no cost to them. Another thing that we really are proud of is we have messaging available in both English and Spanish right now. And we have a variety of messaging topics. So some of the topics include Florida-friendly landscaping, septic systems, Florida water resources, and a variety of different stormwater topics. And then using this tool, you can create educational resources in a variety of formats. So these formats range from door hangers that can be used doing door-to-door educational campaigns, educational flyers, palm cards, posters, as well as social media posts. And with the social media posts, as you can kind of see from this example on screen, it'll crop the educational resource to fit a typical social media platform. So you're creating resources that are pre-designed and ready to be used pretty much immediately after you create them. And really with this tool, it's very effective, and you can create a quality educational resource in as little as 15 to 20 minutes. So you can find the link to this resource in the technical resources section, as I mentioned earlier. And this is one that is kind of still a work in progress, similar to the success story. So we're always open to adding new topics here. So if you decide to go ahead and register and try out the tool, and maybe you find that there's a topic that you think would be really useful, but maybe we don't have featured yet, please feel free to reach out and let us know, because we're always looking for ways to improve this tool and make it more useful for users. So maybe there's a topic that we haven't gotten to yet. Please reach out and let us know, and give us suggestions on how you think we can make that the most effective for you, because ultimately we want this tool to be as effective as possible for those that are using it. So please, we're very open to suggestions. If you have any ideas of topics that you think would be good additions to the tool, feel free to let us know. Again, I'll have my email available for y'all at the end of the presentation. So the next section of the website I'm going to cover, actually, this isn't housed on the website, but the next kind of Green Stormwater Infrastructure initiative that I have to cover today is our grant-funded GSI pilot projects. So around a year and a half ago, we executed a few agreements through the Non-Point Source Management Program to fund some Green Stormwater Infrastructure pilot projects. So with these pilot projects, we're hoping to help communities implement green stormwater infrastructure, and we're also hoping to collect some water quality monitoring data, as well as maintenance information. So we're really interested to kind of learn how these systems are functioning in a variety of locations throughout the state, as well as what's going into maintaining these systems. We want to learn more about what maintenance is occurring, how often it's occurring, and what's really going into it. So with all of these projects, the grantees that are executing them will be reporting to us on their maintenance activities, so that we are able to obtain that knowledge. And then we're also working with Dr. Bean, who spoke a few presenters before me. He'll be doing water quality monitoring on all these sites, so we'll be able to learn more about the functionality of these systems. So just to give you a brief overview of where the projects are and what's going into them, in the city of Pensacola, we have some bioretention areas with native plantings. In the city of Hawthorne, we have a treatment train of rain gardens going in. In the city of Cocoa Beach, we have some bioretention areas with BAM and native plantings. In the city of Melbourne, we have exfiltration landscape boxes with some engineered soil media. And then in Martin County, we have some tree boxes with, again, some engineered soil media. So yeah, our attempt was really to get a variety of systems, as you can see, and really kind of locate them throughout the state, so we could see kind of how things are going in different regions. And then the next GSI resource that I'm going to cover kind of complements the success stories page that I mentioned earlier. So this is our Green Stormwater Infrastructure Project Inventory. So this inventory is our attempt here at the Non-Point Source program to create an exhaustive list of GSI projects located throughout the state. So where I mentioned earlier that the success stories page was more so kind of those star projects, the prime examples that we want to show, this is an attempt to create an exhaustive list. So here we're looking to create an inventory of all GSI projects throughout the state. So we plan for the list to be publicly accessible on the GSI website. And we hope that it will be used by stakeholders to kind of gauge what type of GSI is going in throughout the state, what's happening in different regions, so you can kind of see what's happening around you. and really gain an understanding of what BMPs are being used the most and where. So we want to include projects funded from a variety of funding sources, not just DEP projects. So projects funded by local funding sources, maybe the state funded DEP, federal, as well as private funding sources. So we're considering all GSI projects for this inventory. And yeah, just a reminder, they don't have to be DEP funded. So yeah, as I mentioned, this will be supplementary to the success story page. And we have a project questionnaire that will be used to collect project information for that. Currently under development, very, very close to being ready for distribution. I would estimate maybe in the next 1 to 3 weeks tops, I would think the survey will be live and we'll be ready to send it out and collect project information and get the inventory going. I will be speaking also during our next webinar series date on March 16th. So I will kind of give a reminder about the inventory. We'll have the survey live at that point. So I'll give another reminder. That way, once the survey is live, y'all will have it on mind. And if you have some projects to submit, you'll be able to do so. My email is here on the screen. I'll also have it towards the end of the presentation. If you have any projects that you're just super excited about and would like to send over before that survey is live, please feel free to reach out to me. If you just want to talk about it, you can reach out to me too. And yeah, we're really excited to get this inventory going. And once that survey is live, we'll house it under the GSI website. And then again, if you want to reach out to me directly, I'm happy to collect project information or send you a link to the survey once it is live. And then a next kind of initiative that I'm going to cover is our Florida Friendly Landscaping TV show that we produce here out of the Non-Point Source Management Program. So some of y'all might be familiar with this. We're actually on our 3rd season, so it's been around for a couple of years. So within this show, Florida backyards and front yards, are transformed into Florida-friendly landscapes. So this is a show that really does a great job at showcasing the 9 principles of FFL. Within the show, a yard is flipped, transformed, kind of like HGTV style home makeover, but with a front or backyard. So within it, you can really learn a lot about not just stormwater management, but the principles of Florida-friendly landscaping and how you can create a Florida-friendly landscape at your own yard at home. So currently, season 1 is available to stream on the Discovered Florida channel as well as YouTube. Season 2 is currently airing on PBS and will be available to stream on Discover Florida and YouTube soon. And then season 3, we're really excited about. We're actually mid-filming the season. So we've had our film crew out and everyone's been going to the home locations and making these flips happen. And it's going to be an exciting season. There's some great flips that occurred, and it's going to be a really exciting one. I think it's our best one yet. So a little info about the Discover Florida channel. It is free to stream, and it's an app that you can get on Roku, Amazon Fire TV, the Apple App Store, or Google Play. And then you can also find it on YouTube at youtube.com/flipmyfloridayard. And now I'm going to get into our funding. So as I mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, through the Non-Point Source program, we do have 2 different grant funding opportunities that we offer. So with these grant funding opportunities, we are super eager and excited to fund GSI projects. But with that said, we also do fund gray infrastructure. So it's not just GSI that we do fund. We fund a variety of stormwater projects. As some of y'all might know, we've worked with a lot of folks that are participating in the webinar today. So some of y'all might be familiar with this, some of you might not, but we're always eager to fund a variety of projects, but definitely get excited when we see green stormwater infrastructure proposals. So first I'm going to cover our federal funding. So this is our 319 funding, which comes from the United States Environmental Protection Agency. So construction, education, and monitoring are eligible for grant funding using the 319 grant. With the 319 grant, there is a match requirement. It's a 40% match requirement, and grantees may use state grants and loans towards that match. So the next grant that I'm going to cover is our state swag grant. But one thing that we like to make sure our grantees know is that they can use that state grant as leverage and match for that federal 319 grant. So if you were awarded a state grant for a project, that can be counted towards that 40% match if you were to then try to combine that with a 319 grant. As well as the SRF funding. So we have the state revolving fund that offers low interest loans through the Division of Water Restoration Assistance here at DEP. And those funds can also be used as that 40% match. So the 319 grant funding can take a little bit more time to receive when compared to our other grant source, the SWAG grant. So it's okay if a project applied for 319 maybe isn't quite yet shovel ready. Maybe it's approaching shovel ready. That is okay because there is a bit of a delay from the time that we select the project to the time that the grant award is actually awarded to the grantee. With that said, our SWAG grant, we are typically looking for shovel ready, but I'll talk about that a little bit more on my next slide. So in addition to green stormwater infrastructure projects, some other eligible projects that we can fund through our 319 grant include water quality improvement projects, groundwater protection projects, water quality restoration projects, stormwater BMP projects, non-point source education projects, as well as septic to sewer projects. Now I'm going to talk a little bit about our state grant funding opportunity, which is our SWAG grant, our State Water Quality Assistant Grant. So as I mentioned, with these projects, with this funding source, we're generally looking for shovel-ready projects because the award time is a lot quicker from the time that we do our project selection to the time that the funding is available to the grantee. So we do typically look for shovel-ready projects or projects that are very close to being shovel-ready. So I know I mentioned for our 319 grants, there is a match requirement. For the SWAG grants, there is no match requirement. However, we do like to see a match. It does help during the project selection process. Similarly, monitoring is not a requirement for the SWAG grant, but it can help when it comes to that project selection. We are always looking at, as I mentioned when I was talking about the pilot projects, we're always eager to obtain monitoring data on BMPs, be they green stormwater infrastructure or gray infrastructure. We are eager to understand how our projects are performing and how these BMPs are functioning in the real world. So monitoring is always a plus when it comes to submitting a proposal and being considered for this funding. So again, in addition to green stormwater infrastructure projects, we are also able to fund water quality improvement projects, groundwater protection projects, water quality restoration projects, again, stormwater BMPs, as well as reuse water projects. And then just another reminder that, you can combine these funding opportunities. So you can use the SWAG state grant to leverage a 319 grant. You can use that SRF state revolving fund low interest loan as leverage against that federal 319 grant. And then you can also go for, legislative appropriations. We've seen some projects do a really great job at kind of leveraging all these funding sources together to put together a pretty high dollar number project just by kind of taking a look at the different funding sources that are available and kind of making the most out of all of them to make sure they were able to maximize their funding opportunities. So that covers our grant funding opportunities, the federal 319 and then the state water quality assistance grant. A little bit of information on our proposal cycle for these. So we do 2 proposal cycles per year, one in the fall, one in the spring. We're actually mid-review our fall 2020 review, and then we'll be doing a spring solicitation in the coming months in the springtime. So we will have another proposal cycle open then. With that said, we do have these 2 proposal cycles. We do also accept proposals on a rolling basis. With that said, it's not guaranteed that that they will be reviewed and that funding will be allocated, but occasionally we do have some projects that come under budget, which creates an opening in our overall budget. So sometimes we're able to kind of award some funds out of cycle, but it's not always certain. So if you do have a project that you're excited about, you can submit a proposal out of the normal fall, spring cycle. And if we have some funding available, we'll review it. And if not, we'll kind of hold on to it and review it during the next project cycle. So it can't ever hurt to get a proposal to us. And to submit a proposal, you can contact Connie Becker, who is our grants coordinator, and I'll provide her contact information in a slide at the end of the presentation. And Connie's a great contact to go to. She can help you determine eligible grant components, funding availability, match requirements, and can really help with any other questions you have related to the grant application proposal process. And another place you can go to view available grants from the Department of Environmental Protection is the Protecting Florida Together portal. And there you can find information not just on non-point source management grants, but you could find all open grant opportunities related to water quality from the state in that Protecting Florida Together portal. So that there you can find stuff like our resiliency funding, coastal funding, as well as other opportunities from different departments. Different programs within the department. Yeah, so protectingfloritatogether.com is a great option. Non-point specific, you can contact Connie Becker and she can get a proposal application to you. And here's a little bit, sorry, I guess I forgot to advance my slide when I went over the proposal information. But here's that on a slide, a little bit condensed, so you can contact Connie for a copy of our latest grant proposal. Reminder about our proposal time, September, October, March, April. And again, we can award out of cycle sometimes. And then Connie's your go-to for questions on grant proposals. And then here are some of the emails that I mentioned throughout my presentation. So again, for non-point source management grants, you can contact Connie Becker. For GSI website specific questions, you can contact our non-point source at floridadep.gov email. For publication tool questions, you can contact our non-point source at floridadep.gov email. And then for questions on the success story page or GSI inventory submissions, you can go ahead and email me directly at nathan.jagoda@floridadep.gov. And with that said, if you have questions about really anything I covered today, I'm happy to help you out. So if you would want to email me, feel free to email me. Happy to help out, again, with anything that I covered today. And then at the bottom is just another reminder of the GSI website where you can find a lot of the things that I talked about today, as well as a lot of the things that our other presenters talked about. So a lot of the resources that Claire mentioned through Florida Friendly Landscaping can also be found on our Green Stormwater Infrastructure website. A lot of the projects that Dr. Bean has developed for us can be found under the GSI website. So that's a great resource to have just for a variety of resources regarding green stormwater infrastructure in the state. So with that, that's about all I have for y'all today, and I appreciate your time. And again, just a reminder, any questions, please feel free to reach out to us, and we're always happy to help.
All right. Thank you so much, Nathan. And thank you for everybody who has held on. I know we're running a little late. This is our first webinar together, so thank you for your patience. We do have a lot of really great questions. So if our panelists have just a few more moments of their time, we'll try to get through these as quickly as possible. First off, we've had a lot of questions about the PowerPoints being available and the recorded webinar being available. The webinar will be available online as soon as our team can kind of get the recording together and post them. And I'll post that again in the chat right now. We've also had questions about the PowerPoint specifically. We don't typically post just the PowerPoints, but we're going to figure out internally how we can do that and try to put them on that same website link. In the meantime, if you're really in a rush for one, you can reach out to Claire or myself or anybody else on the team, and we'll try to get you those PowerPoints right away. I think those were kind of the two main questions that I was getting. I also got a question that Claire or Evan, when will the GSI maintenance manual be available, and what's our timeline looking for that?
I'll let you take that one, Claire.
Okay, so the manual will be ready. I would say it's getting its final edits and final, polishing up right now. So I would say this is middle of February. I'd say in, by April, we should have that. And we'll put it on the website and hopefully we'll be able to link to it. We're linking to it, I think, on the GSI website too. So we'll have it on the Florida Friendly website and the GSI website.
And Claire, if somebody is signed up for the email notifications, we'll probably do an email blast and let folks know that it's out then, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Would you mind dropping the link for how people can sign up for that?
Yeah, I'll do that.
Thank you. And then the link for the CEUs, it's been posted a few times, but we can drop that one in again as well. We got a question specifically, are there any professional trainings available on LID site design for planners or project managers?
There are not specific trainings that I'm aware of that are specifically about how to do, to walk somebody through that. And that's something that probably is on the horizon, and maybe something that we could look at developing in the future. But right now, I think that's that specific area has not really been developed that far along yet that I'm aware of.
Maybe you'll see a webinar series on that this time next year. So how about some research on the cost benefits of FFL for utilities? Specifically.
Well, we're working, I'm trying to think of how to answer this. We're working with H2O Save, which is a program through the Center for Land Use Efficiency. And they work closely with utility companies to try to identify high water users and, target educational campaigns specifically at those high water users. We are looking at trying to find a correlation between the education and then the actual behavior change as a result. But we're in process in that. Did that answer the question?
I think so. I think maybe the question is more specifically for studies on water use. I will say we don't have anything on the website currently for Florida Friendly Landscaping, but I am going to follow up on this. And so you might see something posted in the next couple weeks or months. We got a lot of questions regarding green infrastructure, zoning, municipalities, and ordinances. And I will say we are having a presentation on this exact subject on, forgive me, September 21st. So if that is a big concern, please come back and join us then, or stay tuned and see the recorded webinar. Some of the questions, again, Evan, I think probably you'll take these, are what are the biggest roadblocks and what type of policy changes are happening to require LID?
Yeah, so let's see. So there's a lot of things that are going on right now. The FDP, some different divisions have put out sort of some draft updates to the state stormwater rule, which we're hopeful are going to go through, and that does include utilization of GSI practices and sort of methodology. As I understand it, it's typically been reserved for the BMAP programs and the credits there, and this is kind of being grandfathered or kind of transitioned into the overall crediting, or that's where they're at in the draft, at least right now. From the policy side, a lot of the when we think about policy, we think about the state level policy, but there's also sort of the local level policy, and this kind of leads into that September webinar topic. State policy really kind of determines sort of what the GSI has to do, sort of the sizing of the practice, how much volume you have to capture, how much nutrient you're responsible for treating or reducing by. The low impact development, site design, and the spacing and the layout of a site, a lot of that actually that is dictated by the local ordinances and codes for a location. And so there's a lot of indirect and direct restrictions or prohibitions that basically limit the implementation of LID and GSI. They can be, not intentionally, but it's just sort of a byproduct of how codes have been developed over time. So some of those, just off the top of my head, some of the biggest things would be like requiring curb and gutter everywhere. Well, that kind of prevents you from being able to use a swale and kind of some of the disconnected impervious options. So relaxing that. There's some requirements on lot sizes rather than putting it in terms of number of units per certain area. So that gives you a lot of flexibility with like making things more dense and achieving still the same sort of objective. So that's kind of on the local level. We have a tool that we have developed, and we're actually just getting in the process of developing a follow-on to it. But the first part is essentially a tool that lets communities or a consultant kind of go through the codes and evaluate sort of where these gaps or these flaws, if you will, in the code are. These things that basically, these barriers that prevent more LID and GSI from being implemented. The phase 2 would be having actually some suggestions for code language to replace or address those gaps that have been identified. So that's, so where we're at, we're kind of in the midway point in trying to identify municipalities and counties that have good examples of LID and GSI ordinances. So if you have any suggestions, we're trying to just collect what's been implemented in the state of Florida right now. You could just email those to me. That would be wonderful.
Great, thank you, Evan. Next question. Are there protocols for cleaning out or demucking wetlands and bioswales? And who would be responsible for swales in residential areas?
So yes, demucking. Okay, so that, it falls under maintenance. And every stormwater control that's permitted is required to be maintained. The enforcement of that has been difficult. And there's not been a specific capacity professionally or industry professionally to really kind of drive that. This leads into another tool it's on the or will be on the website and training landscapers to be able to inspect and maintain GSI practices like bioswales, like wetlands. So typically when the maintenance needs to occur is as long as it's not affecting the drainage and flooding, a lot of times it's kind of difficult to determine if the water quality treatment is occurring unless you're doing specific testing for that. You can't really do that visually to identify it. But as long as there's a lot of flow capacity, you have volumes available, that usually is acceptable to continue to function. But there are times where we have sediment accumulation, muck accumulation that does need to be removed. And the responsibility for that in residential areas depends on, it could be the HOA. In some cases, it could be the local municipality. So it's sort of one of those two options.
Great. 2 more questions. This one. So do bioretention areas allow mosquitoes to lay eggs by flying in where the water enters?
No, that's a great question. Typically, the bioretention cells are designed so that they will dewater or drain completely within 24 hours, which is not enough time for mosquitoes to lay eggs and to spawn and basically live and use that space. They're intended to dry out in between these storm events. So typically in a lot of stormwater designs, we're trying to do 72 hours is the maximum you want to have water in something on a regular basis. Beyond that, it's kind of the threshold for when, it's sort of thought that's a little bit longer and that might be a habitat for mosquitoes. Another aspect for something that does hold water, for example, stormwater wetlands, we've had a lot of success with selecting plants that recruit predators for mosquitoes. So you have a diverse, well-developed ecosystem, then you're going to have predators of mosquitoes that keep that population down. So a lot of times very thin, tall vegetation like bulrush, pickleweed, that's going to recruit, or that's what a lot of dragonflies like, and they will feast on mosquito larvae and mosquitoes and so forth.
Yeah, no, I love that question. Nobody's trying to make mosquito habitats here.
Absolutely.
All right, last question. Do we have scientific articles available about the performance of golden gold? Or where should somebody go to find these?
Yes, there are. And Chris is here too. He knows a lot more about bowls and golds. But we can get you guys some. I don't know if we have them posted on a specific website, Chris.
Jessica, if you could get them to Nathan and I, we could add it to our Green Stormwater Infrastructure website.
Awesome.
Yeah, sorry, Jess, thank you. The publications are available on the University of Central Florida's website. A lot of that research was done there at the university. So if you Google University of Central Florida and BAM, B-A-M, or University of Central Florida Bold and Gold, you'll find a host of articles there. And we'll be sure to get those over here as well for you guys, Emily. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you, speakers and presenters, and thank you everybody who's held on, even though we've gone over time. If you have any other questions that come up, please feel free to reach out to any of us. I think our contact information has all been dropped in the chat a few times. And we look forward to seeing you all next month for our presentation on funding.